Hi, Jackie from Cambridge Safety here. Welcome to one of our Take 5 minutes, just take 5 minutes for one aspect of workplace health and safety. So in this short video, we're going to talk about the Health and Safety at Work Act, which in 2025 is celebrating its 50th anniversary and 50th birthday. So Health and Safety at Work Act, it's a piece of statute law. It's the law of the land. It's the rules of society. And it has some duties in there. The Health and Safety at Work Act established three types of duty: absolute, which is must; tickable, which means in light of current knowledge and technology, if we can take action, we must take action regardless of cost. And it introduced this so far as is reasonably practicable, weighing up the risk and the cost. These had been mentioned in common law, but now they were clearly introduced into our statute law system. So the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, it's an enabling act. It enables the Secretary of State, whoever that is at the moment in time, to bring in regulations which are legally, get their power legally from the Health and Safety at Work Act. And it's as valid today, perhaps, as it was in 1974. Section 2 is the employer's duty, which is what we're going to explore here. The organisation. If I'm your employer, if I'm the organisation, I have a duty to ensure, so far as is reasonably practicable, so the higher the risk, do more; lower the risk, do less, the health, safety and welfare of my employees. Health, safety and welfare. So it says it all. If we didn't have any other law, this basically says everything. I'm responsible for your health, safety and welfare, so far as reasonably practicable. But if that was all we had, we'd probably still be scratching our heads and thinking, well, that's all great, but what do I need to do? So Section 2 has some subsections, and that goes on to tell us a little bit more about what we need to actually specifically need to do. What do I need to do? So as an employer, I need to make sure that I provide a safe place of work and a safe working environment. The place of work tends to be the building, the working environment, the things around us: space, heat, lighting. Not just a safe place of work, but safe access and egress, thinking about how we come into and out of our workplace. Safe plant and machinery, and safe plant and machinery that is maintained adequately. And that doesn't matter if it's a small handheld tool or an automated conveyor or a forklift truck. There's still a statutory duty to ensure, so far as is reasonably practicable, the machinery and plant is safe. Safe systems of work, you might call them protocols, SOPs, standard operating procedures. So we need to make sure we've got safe systems of work. We need to make sure that articles and substances are safe when used, stored, handled and transported. This is long before COSH and all the other regulations that came along. It didn't really define what a substance was, but it knew that we were using lots of chemicals. So ensure, so far as is reasonably practical, we use them, store them, handle them and transport them safely. It also has this requirement that sometimes people throw out there. We need to give people training, information, instruction and supervision. But again, it's so far as is reasonably practicable. The higher the risk, the more we need to do; the lower the risk, less. Safe working environment, I've mentioned. Two procedural things that were introduced into Section 2, which we hadn't had previously. There was a requirement to consult with our employees. In 1974, it was just where our employees were in a trade union, but that has now been changed. We have a duty to consult with our employees whether they're in a trade union or not. And lastly, the important piece of paper that was introduced by Section 2, every employer must have a health and safety policy that they bring to the attention of their employees, and they revise when they believe it's out of date or there's been a significant change. That was the original health and safety policy. There was an amendment a couple of years later that basically said the health and safety policy, every company must have one, but it must be in writing if you have 5 or more employees. Potted tour along Section 2, my duty to my employees. The employer also has a duty to others. So think about your business. Who are these other people that might be at risk? It might be delivery drivers, post people, it could be contractors, other people who share the site with you. And equally, it's a duty so far as is reasonably practicable. So it's not absolute. The higher the risk, I've got to do more. The lower the risk, less. So if I'm a construction employer, then if I have visitors to my site, obviously there's potentially some high risks. I've got to have a higher degree of control to look after those people. There was an amendment a few years ago as part of the Deregulation Act that basically says self-employed people who only put themselves at risk are exempt from all health and safety laws. And I'm not making it up, but it's only people who only put themselves at risk. And if you think about it, there's not actually many professions that only put themselves at risk. It could be a web designer who works from home, a self-employed, perhaps accountant or somebody like that. But if anybody works in construction with asbestos on the railways or in agriculture, they're definitely not exempt. The last one, from an employer perspective in the Health and Safety at Work Act, which does have over 80 sections, so very much edited highlights here for you today. The employer has a legal duty under Section 9 to provide anything that is legally required free of charge. We normally talk about this in relation to personal protective equipment, because it was the first time where it had to be provided free of charge. But it could be if someone needs to have a specific qualification or undertake some specific training, which they legally need to do to fulfill their role, then that also must be provided free of charge by the employer. We have had a very quick potted tour around the requirements of the Health and Safety at Work Act for the employer. Section 2 is their duty to employees, and all of them are, so far as is reasonably practicable, except the one for consultation, which is absolute, and the one for the health and safety policy, which is absolute. Section 3 is my duty to others, and Section 9, again, is an absolute duty to provide personal protective equipment or other things that are legally required. So thanks very much for watching. This is Jackie Cambridge from Cambridge Safety, the UK's Health and Safety at Work Act, Employers' Responsibilities. www.cambridgesafety.co.uk. Thanks very much.